All right, let's dive into some database history, shall we? Today, we're taking a look back at a release that honestly was a real turning point. We're talking about SQL Server 2008.
And this quote, this really gets to the heart of it. The goal wasn't just to make things a little bit faster or hold a little more data. The ambition was so much bigger, smarter, safer, and for the first time, aware of the actual world around it. That's what they were aiming for.
So let's set the scene. It's August 2008, and this thing drops. And it's really built around two massive ideas that we're going to unpack. First, giving the database admins, the DBAs, way more control. And second, boosting the database's intelligence so it could understand data in completely new ways.
So let's start with that first pillar, control. This was huge. It was about shifting the role of the DBA from constantly putting out fires to actually being able to proactively design and manage their environments.
And how did they deliver on this promise of control? Well, they rolled out this whole new suite of powerful tools. You had policy-based management to enforce rules, transparent data encryption for lockdown security, a resource governor to manage performance, and data compression to make everything more efficient. Let's talk about policy-based management. Okay, picture this. You've got dozens, maybe hundreds of servers. Keeping them all configured the same way, it was a nightmare. This feature let you just set the rules. You could say, hey, every table has to have a primary key, and the system would enforce it automatically. It was a total game changer for keeping things consistent. Next up, a massive leap for security, TDE. The magic word here is transparent. This meant you could encrypt your entire database, all the files sitting on the disk, without having to change a single line of application code. Suddenly, implementing really strong encryption went from being a huge project to, well, flipping a switch. The resource governor. This was the answer to every DBA's prayer. You know that one bad query from a report that suddenly eats up all the CPU and brings the entire server to its knees? This tool let you put a stop to that. You could set limits, create resource pools, and make sure that no single process could become a runaway query and wreck the day for everyone else. And then there was data compression, which was just a fantastic two-for-one deal. I mean, sure, the obvious benefit is you save a bunch of money on disk space, but the often bigger win was performance. When your data is smaller, it takes less time to read it from the disk into memory, so your queries just get faster. Simple as that. Okay, so that covers the whole control side of the coin. But the other half of the story for 2008 was about intelligence. It was about fundamentally changing what we even thought of as data. So what could this newly intelligent database do? Well, for starters, it could suddenly understand maps with spatial data. It could manage huge files like images and PDFs with something called FileStream. It could keep a perfect log of every single change with change data capture. And it made complex data sync jobs way easier with the new merge statement. Let's linger on spatial data because this was revolutionary. Before this, a database knew about numbers and text. Now it knew about places. You could ask it real-world questions like, hey, show me all my customers within a 5-mile radius of this new store location. This opened up a whole new world for mapping and logistics apps built right on top of the database. Now, what about those big clunky files? Images, audio clips, PDFs. Sticking those inside a traditional database was never a great idea. FileStream was this brilliant compromise. The actual file lives on the file system where it's fast and efficient, but the database still manages it, keeping it transactionally consistent. You got the best of both worlds. Change data capture was another one of those quietly brilliant features. It basically acted like a security camera for your tables. Every time a row was inserted, updated, or deleted, CDC would record what changed, who changed it, and when. For auditing or for feeding a data warehouse, this was absolute gold. And the merge statement. Oh man, before this, if you wanted to sync up two tables, you had to write all this complicated logic. First check if it exists, if yes, then update, if no, then insert. It was messy. Merge just rolled all of that into one clean, easy-to-read statement. It simplified one of the most common data warehousing tasks out there. So we have all these huge platform-level features, right? But SQL Server 2008 didn't forget about the people in the trenches, the developers writing code day in and day out. It was also about making their lives a whole lot easier. And for a lot of developers, this was the feature that made them cheer. For the very first time, Management Studio got IntelliSense. I mean, look at the difference. It was night and day. You went from typing everything by hand, crossing your fingers you spelled a column name right, to having the editor help you, auto-completing your code. It made you so much faster and so much more accurate. And that wasn't all. They gave us table-valued parameters, so you could finally pass a whole chunk of data into a procedure at once, which was way more efficient. And, can I just get an amen? They finally gave us separate date and time data types. The long, global nightmare of trying to store just a date without a time was finally over. So let's step back for a second. When you look at all these new tools for control, all these new ways of handling intelligent data, all the improvements for developers, what does it all add up to? What's the final verdict here? The verdict is pretty clear. This wasn't just a random list of new bells and whistles. It wasn't a feature dump. This was a true, cohesive platform upgrade. Every piece was designed to work together to make the entire system more robust and more capable.
At the end of the day, what SQL Server 2008 really did was give businesses the foundation they needed to grow. It provided the tools to scale their systems, to properly secure their data, and to make their day-to-day operations much, much smoother.
Which leaves us with one final thought. As you look around today at all the modern cloud databases, the big data platforms, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many of the ideas we now take for granted about security, about performance, about handling different kinds of data, how many of them can be traced right back to the groundwork laid down in 2008? The legacy, I think, is a lot bigger than most people realize.